Friday. As you can see, I have moved out of the office and into what is my dining room. There's actually some really cool pictures on the walls that you guys can't see, but eventually maybe I'll take you guys on a little tour. I'm really glad it's Friday. I'm really tired. I was training. I just got done training, and then I called my mom, so I've been done for, I don't know, half an hour or so maybe. I head down to the basement a little early, just so I could get done a little earlier today. I've noticed that because it gets so dark so early still, that if I wait until after 5 o'clock, sometimes I'm like dragging myself down there. But if I go down at like 4:30 when it's still relatively light out, I feel much better about my training. But I did mention this on Wednesday, that I have been pretty tired this week, and so definitely feeling that today, like feeling a little bit winded. No, I don't have the Rona, but just feeling a little bit run down. But also, my macros have changed. My calories are a little bit lower than they normally would be, just because I am, trying to kind of stay in that deficit for most of the week. So I am losing consistently like 1 or 2 pounds a week is the goal here. So I can get to my goal sometime in the next, now would be like 10 weeks, I think. And that is not an earthquake. That is my 14-pound tabby cat jumping on the table. Because he's trying to figure out what I'm doing. So he might come around and visit us here in about 3 seconds. But hi, honey. Mommy's busy. I'm busy. Yeah, I love you, honey. You guys are, this is what people make fun of Foodie Beauty for. It's her cat is like all up in her business all the time. Kitty is very curious. Like I said in my mukbang video, he is a nosy heifer. Nothing happens in this house without him knowing about it. Vetted out the cat and being a jerk. We can get back to this. So as I was saying, I've been a little bit tired this week, a little bit run down. Calories are a little bit lower right now. Training has been hard. Like I've done some higher volume things. I did some capacity work today on the Airdyne, which if you've ever done the Airdyne or the assault bike, whatever variation your gym or your box has, you will understand what I'm talking about when you try to achieve a certain calorie burn in a specific amount of time. And so today was hard and fast, just 100 calories in like a little over 7 minutes. So a little slower, I think, than my lifetime PR for that calorie amount, but basically averaging right now, I could do about 300 calories in 24 minutes is about where I'm at right now, 23 and a half, 24 minutes. So not terrible, especially for being female and also not being a high-level elite athlete. So I do have that going for me. Anyway, what else is going on? Typical Friday, a lot of things going on at work, had a lot of presentations today. It's been a long week. Yeah, it's been a long year, and it's only the 15th of January. So, but some positive things going on, some changes going on at work that are really great. So happy about that. Anyway, the Packers play tomorrow. I know I mentioned that on Wednesday. Very excited, very nervous. Don't fuck it up. Gonna film another mukbang or an eat with me. I don't know. I shouldn't call it a mukbang because it's not like a full-on like mukbang, because it was really fun actually, as I mentioned before. Anyway, so I wanted to put a trigger warning on this video, because I feel like I probably should, and I maybe even should have put one on my video on Wednesday as well, because we were talking about Eugenia Cooney and the efforts to deplatform her, and based on her content, and kind of having a little bit of a conversation about, what should be allowed, on social media platforms, what shouldn't be allowed on social media platforms, things like Twitter, kind of stemming from, them, deplatforming the president of the United States, but, then they leave up people like the Ayatollah of Iran, right? And, like I said, why is it okay for, one guy to sit there and talk out his ass, but not another? And then who gets to decide, right? Like what that content is. And I had mentioned a comment that Foodie Beauty had made this week towards DC Media Girl. And I'm not trying to harp on that specific comment because it was disgusting. It was inappropriate. It was a complete, like, it was intentional as far as I'm concerned. And, if anyone can prove me wrong, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But, she knew what she was doing when she said effectively, like I said, you could tell in her, I've seen the replays of her live stream that she was very agitated that people were talking about DC Media Girl. And I understand now what was going on in the context. I didn't necessarily understand that in the context on Wednesday of why she was being, was agitated. DC Media Girl had actually gone live at the same time or right after Chantel had gone live and was like reacting to her live stream or, whatever. And, Chantel was making a can of soup, and that's when she dropped the bomb of, if you want to react to something, why don't you go react to the Holocaust? And, and saying this to, a Jewish person, obviously incredibly problematic. Right. And, and you can argue like, oh, she has, free speech. Well, first of all, she's a Canadian, so I don't understand like what their laws are up there. But as far as I'm concerned, like under, you can't like, just because you can say it doesn't mean you should. Right. And especially when it's obviously so incredibly intentional. Right. So anyway, I watched a 2-hour and 48-minute reaction by Pulpy Syntax. If you don't know Pulpy Syntax, his real name is Zach. He lives in Australia. He is delightful. He puts together very thoughtful reactions. So if you have not seen his reaction, I encourage you to watch it when you have some time. I will link it below. So if you just want to click and go, you may do that. And it really started to make me think about the last, not even the last 4 years, because I think it's something that's been more in the forefront of all of our lives because of the, the 24-hour news cycle and, because like of the increased popularity in Twitter and like all these different things, right? That we've seen over the last 4 years. And I'd love to do some post-doc. Oh, hello. Hello, Kitty. I'd love to do some post-doc research on this particular topic because I'd like to see like what the impact is. Okay. And so, back to what I was saying about the weaponization kind of our language, right? And I don't think it's new. I don't think it's unique to the last 4 years. I think, again, we've just become more aware of language and the use of certain words. Whether in context or out of context to certain situations, ways to describe people, certain groups of people are being described in certain ways, and just kind of how that has changed the way that we use language, right? And it really made me think about the situation with Foodie Beauty and the word that she chose, to say. She says, oh, I just made something up, like a significant historical event, and told someone to go react to it, But first of all, bullshit. I call some bullshit on that, right? But I think it speaks to a broader trend. I don't know if that's the right word, about, again, the weaponization of our language, right? In the words that we choose to describe each other. And this is where the trigger warning comes in. I'm going to say some words that have become very commonplace, especially in the United States, to describe different groups of people based on their political views, based on their religious views, based on whether or not they are supporters of Donald Trump, based on whether or not they vote Republican or they tend to vote conservatively, based on maybe where they work, based on what they do for a living. And I just want to have a conversation basically with myself about this because I'm trying to make sense of it in my own brain. Like, what is this? Like, and when did we start doing that? And when did we start to, so loosely throw these words around to describe someone who disagrees with us? So the first word is white supremacist. I'm probably going to get kicked off YouTube. My career is going to be over before it started. That word has been used to describe, and I don't want anyone to make assumptions about me, because I can tell you right now you're wrong. About, just don't make assumptions. Let's just stick it there. That's where we're going to leave it. Don't make assumptions about me for some of the things that are going to come out of my mouth, because I guarantee you you're wrong. The word white supremacist has been used to describe the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, high-ranking members of our military, congressmen, congresswomen, senators, governors, people, your neighbors, people you go to church with, people you go to synagogue with, people you go to mosque with, your mailman, police officers, anyone who has gone to a Trump rally. They have been, and this is the next word that has been very loosely started to be used in this country without thought of what it implies and any potential ramifications, is that, if you've been to a Trump rally, you are a Klan member, that you're participating in a Klan rally, and you're kind of like, what? And you can feel any way you want about, like I said, about the President of the United States. I'm not trying to convince you to feel differently, right? Like, I'm not trying to convince you that he is exactly what the media says he is, or that he's not. I'm not trying to convince you that. I'm just trying to really, think about the language and the words that we've been using, right? And that's the sound of a 14-pound tabby cat jumping off a table, which is why the camera's been shaking for the last 12 minutes. So I apologize for that. But, so, kind of back to my point is, like, what is wrong with us? That we are using such inflammatory words, right? And the word Nazi, is being thrown out to describe, men and women and people you go to church, again, with people you go to church with, and the president and the vice president and senators, and I'm sorry, but this is not appropriate. That is not an appropriate way to describe somebody that you disagree with. And that's what this is. This is not, anything other than, people using and choosing, knowingly choosing, understanding the connotation behind these words, right? That when you say the word Nazi, you immediately go, and this is kind of along the lines of Foodie Beauty, is that when you throw out the word the Holocaust, when you throw out the word Nazi, you immediately go to Hitler, right? You immediately go to the murder, of millions of people, not just Jews, right? But, homosexuals, for example, anyone who is considered a criminal, like Polish people, they weren't even necessarily Jewish. And I'm not downplaying that, because it was, obviously not, like, you guys know that that's not what I'm doing. But, you're talking about a man who had the intention of, taking over the whole world and eliminating these people, and that's I'm sorry, what? And now when you use that word, to describe someone who happens to go to a political rally, and here's the deal, you little fuckwits, you don't even know why those people are there. Again, you're making assumptions. And I'm not saying your assumptions are wrong or they're right? I'm just saying that, I know people who have gone to political rallies of the opposite party just to see what it's all about, right? The people at the Capitol, no, it is wrong to try to overthrow the government, okay? They're starting to arrest people. They're starting to get these stories. These people have been planning this for years, even before Trump, and they were yeah, we're going to kill everybody in the government. This is a real thing. And these people have sort of they've floated to the surface with Donald Trump, right? And right or wrong, but at least now we've identified these people and we can kind of put the kibosh on this, because this is not okay. And so, but where was I going with this? Oh yeah, the labeling. You've now just, you've now started to just label people with these terms, this inflammatory and this rhetoric, because they happen to go and do something, or they have the appearance that they're supporting something, or they're, participating in something that you happen to disagree with. And I'm sorry, but the first thought that comes to your mind is to call someone a Nazi. Why wouldn't you just call them, oh, that person lives down the block and they just disagree with you? Why do you have to go there, right? Like, why are we weaponizing these words to try to, like, I don't know if it's to make ourselves feel better, and I assume that that's probably part of it, to make ourselves feel righteous, that if we are not a supporter of this group or that person, that, well, we're not white supremacists. Okay, but like, that person's not either, right? And the people that went to the Capitol, there are some really bad people, okay? And this whole idea, right? And we've done this on both sides of this fence, right? We did it over the summer during the Black Lives Matter rallies and protests and stuff. We've done it with the people at the Capitol, is that we've labeled them. And like over the summer it was, oh, well, these Democratic Black Lives Matter supporters, and they're creating things and burning things down. Okay, fine. But here's the thing. Once you cross the line between peaceful protesting and making your voice heard, which is the most patriotic thing you can do, in our Constitution and our, our society allows that, right, to be able to speak freely and to stand up for the things you feel passionately about. Once you cross the line and you start like destroying people's property and like doing other things, you are no longer a part of that movement. You are just an asshole. Okay, it's the same on the other side. Like, once you decide to take over the Capitol and you go into the Capitol building with the intention of trying to murder the vice president and the Speaker of the House, you are no longer a Trump supporter. You are an asshole, right? And we have to start doing that. Like, we have to start getting away from this whole like, oh, well, these Trump supporters who try to take over the government. Like, no. Like, that, once you cross that line, like, you are no longer ours, right? Or you're no longer a part of this group or that group or whatever, right? You've now just become an asshole. That's what you are, an asshole, okay? And you might be a passionate asshole, and I understand, like, and I could do an entire, like, I could talk for hours on this. I understand the passion that people feel. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Okay. Anything. I understand why people become passionate about the things, in their lives. Like, I get it. You just have to believe me when I say that I totally understand that. But we have to start moving away from this. We can't, and I'm not saying like, and I know I sound like a politician right now. Oh, unity. Well, it's going to be really hard for the people who have been called white supremacists and Nazis and Klansmen and, all of these terrible things for the last 4 years, to want to go into the tent with the new administration. Okay? And again, I don't want you to make any assumptions about me with that statement, because they're wrong. But I can see why that would be very difficult for them. And when you listen to some of the things that have been said, about people who voted for Donald Trump, and some of the things that are on the internet right now, and trust me, I don't believe everything I see on the internet, but when people start talking about like, oh, we're going to tell your employer that you voted for Donald Trump, or that you're a registered Republican and they can make a decision about whether or not you should be employed there because you have questionable morals, like, when you start doing that shit is when I lose all respect for you. Like, who people support is their own business, right? It's the same thing with my comment about Eugenia Cooney. She has the right to put herself out there in any way she wants, whether you agree with it or not, right? And we need to get away from this. I can't stress that enough. We need to take these words, right, and stop using them, in a way that, like, we're using these words to hurt each other, right? Because what's the most inflammatory thing you could say to someone right now? You call them a racist, right? You call them a white supremacist. You call them homophobic. You call them all the things, the is, the is, right? The whatevers, right? And we've got to stop doing that. And if you're going to put it out there, and if you're going to make accusations, I'm talking to you, AOC. Like, girlfriend, girl, you gotta stop. Okay, girl, you gotta stop. And I'm I get it, right? Okay, I get it. But when a sitting congresswoman says that on a live feed in Twitter, that she was afraid that the white supremacists in Congress were going to tell the protesters, the rioters, whatever, where she was so they could come and kill her. If you were going to say that out loud about anybody, you better name names and you better have proof. That's all I'm saying. Because saying it and labeling people that you disagree with as a white supremacist or a racist or a homophobe, whatever it is, without proving it and then naming who these people are, like, all you are doing is pouring gasoline on a fire that is already burning so hot that you can't get anywhere near it. Okay? Like, this isn't the kind of fire, honey, that you roast marshmallows on. Okay? The more you do that, and I'm not just talking about Andrea Ocasio-Cortez. I'm not just talking about her, okay? Like, I'm not trying to single her out. I'm not calling her out on this. Like, that is not my intention, but she just happened to be the example. If you're going to say it, if you're going to label someone with these terms, you can't just make a generalized statement and say, oh, well, all these white supremacist Congress people, no, you better name names and you better have proof, right? And you better file complaints with the proper authorities, because when you do that, it just makes the people, right, who stormed the Capitol, it proves their point, right, that we're losing control of the country to the government, okay? That there's this massive fraud taking place with everything, right? That there's this secret society or whatever these things are that really do exist. And we all know that that's not true, right? Now, do I think the government is lying to us? Of course. Of course they are. Like, that's just part of the government, right? But when you say stuff like this, right, whether it's towards, sitting members of Congress, whether it's towards, again, your neighbor, your mailman, your, whatever, like, you better have proof. Like, we need to get back to normalizing. How do I want to say this? We need to get back to normalizing that these words are not okay. Right? Like, and I'm not saying that they're not appropriate and to describe certain groups of people that exist. Sure. Okay. Historically, you could use those terms and, whatever. You can look at a situation and be like, you know what, this just seems kind of racist, or like, this is weird or whatever. But we're not doing that. We're not putting it in context. We're throwing these words, we're spewing these words at people who we disagree with. And it could be over something really stupid. Like, for example, like, maybe someone doesn't agree that, small businesses should pay $15 an hour, for minimum wage, and okay. And did you just call the guy down the street a racist because he's saying I can't afford a $15 minimum wage for my employees? Oh, and that makes him racist. No. Maybe you should talk to the man and understand his business and understand, like, the price points that they have in their business and understand the margins that they're working with, and then maybe have an adult conversation about why he disagrees. But that's not what's happening. The first thing that comes out of everyone's mouth, well, that motherfucker's a racist. We've got to stop. Like, use it when it's appropriate, right? And there's some things that should never be used, i.e. Chantel, i.e. Foodie Beauty. However, like, if you're going to use it, you better back that stuff up. You can't, again, we've weaponized these words, right? Even my own brother, right, who I love dearly, we just are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum with a lot of things, although we do agree on a lot too. But like the other day I was talking to him and he was using, he was describing a former presidential candidate as an absolute lunatic. And I was like, just because you disagree with that person doesn't make them a lunatic. And that's an easy word. Like that's not as offensive, right? Thank God he didn't call this person a Nazi or white supremacist or a Klansman or whatever, but just because you disagree doesn't mean you need to label someone so harshly, right? And people need to understand, like, this cancel culture stuff is real, and if someone were to get labeled that way, like, they could lose their job, like their livelihood, their families are affected, and you can't sit there and tell me that, oh, you care about people, but then you go and you say stupid shit like that, and it's like, please think about the language, right? And think about when you choose words, right? And this kind of goes back to the Foodie beauty thing. If you're going to make a statement, like, think about your choice of words, right? And think about how they might be perceived, right? And I'm not saying you should worry about what people think about you in terms of like your, like what you say, and especially if you happen to be an influencer or something watching this, like, obviously, like, I think people, again, have certain expectations with these influencers that they have to, present themselves in a certain way, and that because they have a platform that they have to be, acting in a certain way, and, whatever. And I am not making excuses for Foodie Beauty by any means, because I know she knew exactly what she was doing when she said that. But, think about it. Like, before you weaponize some of your language, and that's why I really, really like Pulpy Syntax, is because he, obviously he and I come from literally across, completely different parts of the world, right? We grew up completely differently. Like, I'm a woman, he's a man, like, and I won't out him, any of his things that he has said in his own, vlogs and stuff like that's for you to go and learn and interpret on your own. But like, we have very different lives, right? but he doesn't sit there in his live stream, and he doesn't say things like, oh, well, look at, like, oh, well, if you disagree with me, you're a bigot. He doesn't say stuff like that, right? And we all need to take a lesson from Pulpy Syntax, right? And there's others too. I'm just using him as the example. Like, everybody calm down. Stop calling each other Nazis. This is not okay. Like, we have to start normalizing acting like adults again, and if we disagree with someone, please pick up the phone and call them and like try to understand where they're coming from. You don't have to agree with it. And I'm not talking about crazy shit, guys, like, and don't come at me and be all like, well, you're just trying to like tell people it's totally okay for them to, like be totally racist and hate people and act this way and storm the Capitol and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about rational thought here. Okay. So like, if someone disagrees with you on something, like, why don't you ask them where they're coming from? And maybe you can help them, right? Like, if someone has a different life experience than you do, that doesn't mean that they're wrong. They just have a different life experience than you do, right? And you might be able to help them, and they could be, a different race, a different religion, a different political persuasion, sexual orientation. They could be transgendered. They could be, I forget all the things, guys, forgive me, right? Like, I forget all the labels, right? I forget all the thing, and I don't say that to be insensitive. It's just my own ignorance, maybe. Like, I know that they exist. I just don't know what they are, right? I just can't recall them off the top of my head, right? So there's something for me to think about, is, to educate myself more on all the different labels now that people use to describe themselves, right? And that's okay. Like, it's just stop being assholes. Stop being assholes. Like, we're never going to get past this if we don't start to humanize each other again. And that's a big part of this too, I think, is that we've dehumanized each other. Because what's the fastest way to dehumanize somebody? You call them a Nazi. It's the fastest way. And, and again, don't make assumptions about me and where I'm coming from, because you're wrong. I will tell you that right now. But stop dehumanizing each other. Talk to each other, please. Stop throwing out these words. Like, stop it. Like, don't get caught up in your YouTube drama, and or your social media drama or your Twitter drama and all this stuff. Although I can tell you right now, it's a little bit weird not knowing what Donald Trump is up to. it's a bit bizarre because we've gotten like what 400 tweets a day from him for the last 5 years, and like all of a sudden now we don't know what he's up to. It's a little bit scary. But I'm not trying to make light of that, right? I know you can hear the laughter, and the kind of like the pick up on the humor there and the sarcasm a little bit, but anyway, so that is my Friday vlog. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk as always. Gonna film a little mukbang eat with me for Monday. The Packers play tomorrow. Please don't fuck it up. I cannot stress that enough. I'm gonna eat some carbs and I'm gonna go to bed early and hang in there, guys. Like, I know it's weird right now, but we're Americans. We're gonna get through it. Everything's gonna be fine. I know that President-elect Biden was on TV today talking about COVID and how it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I'm not saying don't listen to him, okay? But don't listen to him, okay? Like, have some hope. It's okay to be hopeful. It's okay to start to think about the future, about traveling again. It's okay to think about the day when we're not going to have to wear a mask outside. Although here in Wisconsin, our mask mandate, no surprise, just got extended for another 60 days. And but it's okay to be hopeful in the middle of all of this too, and don't feel bad, for feeling hopeful. Like I said, I'm not telling you not to listen to President Biden, but like today when he was talking, I was like, boo boo, you're getting a little dark on this, with the, it's going to be such a dark winter and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I'm not trying to downplay or be insensitive to the people who have lost family members and lost their lives and their jobs and all the thing, because you guys, you don't know what I do for a living and how I've been impacted by COVID personally, and also professionally. And so, and someday we'll talk about it. When this is all over, we'll talk about it, and I can share some perspective on some things, and I can share, I think, some perspective on pieces of the response from corporate America that I think have been really twisted in the media. And I can give you guys, again, just my experience during this. And I hope that if you have experience, leave some comments for me. I'd love to hear what your experiences have been with this whole situation. But I just want you guys to know that it's been bad for so many people, but it's okay to have some hope for the future and to start thinking about, going and seeing your family and friends, and, and that doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't at all. And I think that word gets thrown around quite a bit as well. Is that, if you want those things and you want a vaccine and you want to hurry up and you want it to be over, that you're somehow very selfish. And that is not true. I will tell you that right now. It does not make you selfish from wanting to see your parents, or your siblings, or your grandma. Like, my grandma's 90. I'm not going to get the last year back. It's not like my 3.5-year-old nephew, right? Like, he's got his whole life ahead of him, right? Like, hopefully, right? But like, my grandma doesn't, like, and so I won't get that time back with her. And my dad's 78, and like, I won't get that time back with him either, so yeah, so it doesn't make you selfish. So just keep that in mind if you've been feeling bad, or if you were starting to feel really hopeful and then you happen to listen to the message today about how it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that was a little bit, I was not put off by it, because I understand he's trying to keep people from acting recklessly and creating more problems, right? But at the same time, I just feel like it's still okay to feel positive about where things are going. So, all right, guys, have a good weekend. I would say go Packers, and as always, fuck the Bears, but the Bears aren't playing this weekend, so go Packers. I will see you guys for my mukbang. Have a nice weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.